Okay, so here I am tapping away. Let's discuss some of my military career. I think the last time I spoke to you, I was in Germany. I then did a couple of tours out there with the Black Watch, Royal Scots, and 3-2 armoured engineers, or armoured farmers as we call them, up in Münsterlager. After my stint up in Münsterlager, I then ended up getting posted back to the UK to 15 Field Workshops, REME in Catterick. Now, when I turned up there, I thought to myself, workshops, got to be a big place. So I turned up, I'm driving around Catterick looking for somewhere. There was no signpost for 15 Field off the main drag. But drove around and eventually I came across a place called Ypres Lines. Now this is a strange one because Ypres Lines used to be the motorcycle sheds for the Royal Signals White Helmets display team. And those of you that may have seen them at the Royal Tournament and so on, these guys used to do all sorts of stunts on motorbikes, Royal Signals. Yeah, great display team, did some wonderful stuff. But I couldn't believe that here I was, and it was like a little shed. It was no bigger than a sort of garage, And here we were supposed to be supporting various units around the Catterick garrison. Yeah, which we duly did. When I got posted there, and this leads on to something that Keith has done recently about religion in the army. Now, when I arrived in 15 Field Workshops, I was a newly promoted sergeant. And what it was I turned out and had an interview with the OC. Sat down with him, and he said to me about, one thing you need to be aware of, Sergeant Clark, is that you've got a Mormon priest as one of your electricians. This guy had done missionary work all around the world. I'm going to name him. His name's Stevie Keeble. And Stevie, if you ever see this, mate, please get in touch. But I then, duly after my interview, went up to my office. Now, at the time, I had 7 regular army vehicle electricians and 9 TA electricians. And I walked into my office, and every single one of them was there to welcome me to 15 Field Workshops. It was lovely. And I sat down, they were all there, introduced myself, and the next words out of my mouth was, "Who's the Bible puncher then?" Just to try and lighten the atmosphere. And young Stevie Keeble, who was a young craftsman, suddenly stuck his hand up. "I think you're looking for me, son." Now, me and Steve got on brilliantly. And one of the things that Steve did was educate me about the Mormon Church and what they do. Now, a lot of people will understand that the Mormons, they have multiple wives and so on. Yeah, that was in the olden days. Steve said to me, if I tried that, my wife would probably kill me. One of the other things is they don't drink coffee, they don't drink Coke, or anything that's got any sort of additives to it. And whilst I was at 15 Field, we got deployed out to Germany on an exercise. And we were housed up in Normandy Barracks in Sennlager. And one night, the lads all went downtown into Paderborn. And Stevie went with them. And the following morning, back of the truck, Stevie was one of these, he was a real fitness fanatic. And following morning, I'm laid in my pit, look across, and Stevie's lying there and he's looking extremely ill. And I said, you all right? "Oh, I don't know, I feel rough, boss," was his reply. I said, "You all right? You know, you okay?" I said, "You went downtown last night, didn't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You might have got a bit of food poisoning or something." So I said to him, "You know, what restaurants and that did you go to?" Well, I'd served in Paderborn and Senlager area prior to this, so I knew most of the restaurants and that. And he told me which ones he'd been to. I thought, well, no, they're not normally any problem. I said, "So where else did you go?" So he told me the pubs he went into with the boys. And then he mentioned the fact that they got him alcohol-free beer. Well, in those days, alcohol-free beer didn't exist. So I said, "Right, so did you get it in a bottle or did you get it in a glass?" "Oh, it was in a glass." Right, okay. So I realised what he was suffering from was a hangover. So I went and saw our sergeant major, a bloke called Mick Folan, and I asked the sergeant major if we could get the workshops on parade. And then I tore a strip off every single one of them and said to him, "You realise this guy's religion says that he's not supposed to drink alcohol or anything like that?" I said, "You know full well about that." I said, "You've been told enough times." I said, "Poor lad's lying in bed thinking that he's ill, and he's not, he's suffering from a hangover." Well, I didn't say anything to Steve at the time. It wasn't until I was leaving 15 Field Workshops to get posted back to Germany. And he came round to my house and I finally owned up about what had happened to him. But it's like I say, religion in the army, I'll do something on it a bit later on, but religion in the army, me and religion don't get on, as far as I'm concerned. You know, there is no one up there, but that's my opinion. But I will never slate anyone for religion. My best mate was best man at his wedding a couple of years ago, Lionel. As Lionel will tell you, he thought the only way he'd ever get me into the church was for him and Shannon to get married. But I would never slate anyone. It's like Shahid, who I worked with at Metla Toledo, who's a Muslim, taught me all about the Muslim religion, yeah, and what it was all really about, not this fundamentalist stuff. But like I say, people have their own beliefs and so on. Good morning. People have their own beliefs and so on, and that's up to them, you know. But one thing I don't like is when people try and push religion onto me. If I'm interested, you know, I'll ask them a question, they want to tell me, it's fine. But when I get these people out on the street that are ranting and raving about their religion, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses, bloody Hare Krishnas and all that, yeah, if I want to be involved in that, then, you know, I will learn about it. But it's when people try and force it onto you. That's what I don't like. But religion in the army has its place. We have our various padres. And when I do one on religion, I'll tell you about a padre that was attached to the Black Watch and the Royal Scots. He was the right character. But like I say, I'm out doing this tab at the moment. And from 15 Field, I then got posted to 39 Heavy Regiment, in brackets MLRS, Regiment Royal Artillery. Now I got posted to them, and the next thing I know, me and my wife and the kids arrived, and this was in 1990. Yeah. When we tipped up there, my wife said to me, you know, "Do you think this lot will go to the Gulf?" Because the Gulf War is starting to kick off. And I went, "Not a chance. No way in hell." So the unit's just transitioned from M110s and 109s to this new system called MLRS, Multiple Launch Rocket System. That was in the October. Yeah. In the November, we all get called into the gymnasium by the colonel and briefed that we were deploying out to the Gulf, which we duly did beginning December. Now, between November and December, the MLRS has not been commissioned by the British Army. We took it to Hona and we fired off a few, but it wasn't the commissioning firing. The actual commissioning firing for the MLRS system was carried out in Saudi Arabia. So we'd arrived in Saudi Arabia. Like I say, the lads had only had the equipment probably a couple of months, 6 months at tops. And suddenly we had to do this commissioning firing. Yeah. So we were actually going to war, and we weren't, or the lads from the Royal Artillery weren't really fully trained up on it. And the commissioning firing was held, and we had to fire at an island called Crab Island, just off Al Jubail. Well, one of the things about MLRS and the colonel at the time, we had these T-shirts made up. Yeah, 39 Heavy Regiment Royal Artillery Grid Square Removal Service. And if you know anything about MLRS, that's exactly what it does. It will obliterate a 1 kilometre grid square. So they've missed the island. So the next thing was they were blaming the equipment. And as part of the workshops for 39 Heavy, what we had was a truck called a Diana truck, £1.75 million worth of box body computer. And myself and the Eckie sergeant, a bloke called Dusty Miller, we had to take the kit off the MLRS, all the GPS systems, the guidance and everything, and run it through this Diana truck. So we did that through the night. Following morning, me and Dusty go and see the colonel, give him the results from the testing that we did. And we could find nothing wrong with the equipment whatsoever. So the colonel decided that it must have been the Met that had been supplied, the weather forecast. So at that time, 40 Field Regiment, Royal Artillery, were firing 109s. And they fired onto Crab Island on the same day, hit the target. We'd missed it by 2 kilometres. So it couldn't have been the Met. And what it was really was the guys were still trying to come to terms with how to operate the MLRS. At the time, my now ex-wife was back in Germany, and she did this thing called liquid embroidery. So all the T-shirts from the workshops I collected and got them sent back to Germany, and asked my wife to put a comment on the back of the T-shirts, which didn't go down too well with the colonel, because when they finally came back out to us in the Gulf, the T-shirts read on the back, "You pick a grid square and we'll destroy some other bugger." Yeah, the colonel wasn't too happy, but you know, it was just a joke. It was a bit of humour. But we ended up sitting in the desert for months, up until when the air attacks and then the artillery raids happened on the Iraqis. Good morning. So, if you know anything about MLRS, or what was MLRS back in 91, it fired a rocket. Inside that rocket was a cluster of bomblets, which were like anti-personnel mines. Yeah, and when it got over the target, it would release those. Yeah, so one launcher could actually destroy a whole kilometre grid square, because in each launcher there was 6 rockets. So the raids happened. Our guys were firing along with the Americans with their MLRS, and we were pounding the Iraqi positions, yeah, to soften it up, ready for the ground war to start. So the ground war ironically started on the 24th of February 1991, which was also my now ex-wife's birthday. So we went through the breach 24th of Feb, yeah, and the ground war lasted for 100 hours. All the time we were pushing forward at a rapid rate of knots, to the point that myself and one of my colleagues, because we were doing forward reconnaissance, even though we were REME, for the artillery admin area, we were pushing forward, and we ended up at the Mutla Ridge, or the Valley of Death, as the TV companies called it, on the Basra High Road heading out of Kuwait. But we ended up there about half an hour after the A-10s and the Apache gunships had gone in there and caused mayhem on Mutla Ridge. So that was me with 39 Heavy Regiment Royal Artillery. Came back to Germany, served with them for about another 2 years in Germany before being posted again back to the UK. So, like I say, this jacket that I'm wearing has seen a bit, as in it's been out in the Gulf, yeah, and like I say, it was worn again when I was out in Bosnia. I did my tours in Bosnia. So 39 Heavy Regiment no longer exists. One of the things I did at the end of the war was a thing called Nobby's Battlefield Tours. Because I'd been forward, I knew where most of the Iraqi dispositions were. So when the war had finished and we're all sat in the desert waiting to come home, yeah, I was taking those guys that hadn't been in a position to see what was going on out into the desert and showing where the Iraqi dispositions were. It was quite amazing, because the Iraqis were being treated like fodder by their NCOs and officers, especially the officers. They were actually not being fed, not being watered. We all went on to half rations and water to try and help these guys, and I'll never forget the look on some of these young kids' faces. Some of them had come direct from the Iran-Iraq war onto the border of Kuwait without ever seeing their loved ones, and they were in a sorry state. And you felt sorry for them, because at the end of the day, they're squaddies. They were in the same position as us. So we ended up flying home. All the equipment came back via the ships from the 17 Port Maritime. Came into Bremerhaven. We picked them up and then got them back in. So, like I say, 39 doesn't exist anymore. I believe there's only one MLRS regiment in the artillery now. And I believe that's even a reserve regiment. It's not a regular unit. But MLRS was a real game changer during the Gulf War. One of the Iraqi prisoners actually said to us, "What was that black rain that fell upon us?" And the black rain was these bomblets, because they were like little hockey pucks. But yeah, the Gulf War, we've done a thing on the war, how it is to be in war previously. But it's not a nice place at all. Anyway, I'm getting close down to my turnaround point. So I'm going to switch off now. Like I say, if you're new to the channel and you're thinking, what's that little idiot on about? Yeah, and you think, I might watch that, please consider it. Yeah, not telling you to do it, saying to you, please consider it. It's up to you. We're trying to grow channels and do some interesting stuff. You'll see that I'm doing stuff about things that I'm doing today, stuff that I've done in the past, and even a bit of music. Yeah, because I'm now getting back to playing with guitars. So, to all of you out there, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and I shall see you all again soon.